So this video is going to be a strange one, basically talking about how not to spoil a very healthy and productive batch of watermelon. Um, at this point, I was actually going through and just identifying, looking at the quality of melons that were on the vines, and little did I know, little did I know, I was thinking in my mind how beautiful, how lovely. This was my first, I would say real melon patch that, you know, um, had so much promise. But little did I know that at this point, even before this point, looking at it, you can actually see the spots, which basically just indicate screaming downy mildew, screaming that the plants were sick. But when you're looking at the entire patch as a whole, it just looks healthy, you know. But this was definitely far from healthy. This was suffering from severe downy mildew, mild to severe. And I didn't recognize it. When I eventually found out, it was too late. I tried to control it using two different types of fungicide that claim to be able to control or manage downy mildew, but it didn't work. I lost most of the melons on in this video in the patch. I lost most of them, even some that actually grew to a really nice size. When I cut them, they had nothing but whitish, pinkish. I got a few that went a little bit closer, but those were not sweet. I think I only got one that I was pleased with. I'll show that later down. I had really nice melons, as you can see there. Those turned out to be about about 16 pounds. You know, 15, 16 pounds, 13 pounds. Really nice melons. But ignorance killed me. So ensure one, that your watermelon plants gets adequate nutrients. Two, ensure they get adequate water, which is I was using drip, but just ensure you water them down, and it's a hot season. You water them down every day. You soak them down every day. In some cases maybe even twice per day. Make sure that you keep the bed clean from of weeds. Make sure to check your plants, check the leaves. That's three, or is that four? Check the leaves, ensure that there are no spider mites. Ensure that the spider mites show up in the form of cobwebs, something looking like a cobweb on the back of the leaves. Ensure that there is no aphids, which also gather on the back of the leaves, and it causes the leaves to quail and fold. Ensure as well that, as I said, you keep the bed clean. I didn't prune, but pruning is also another very important activity that you'd want to do to ensure that your watermelons come wonderful. I believe that if I had pruned, I would have had a little bit more, it would have been a little bit more roomy. The plants would have had a little bit more air, air could pass through better, and that probably would have helped to prevent such a rapid spread of the downy mildew. So I'm going to prune my next time around. I would also get more uniform fruits. I got some large, some small, some in between. I think I would have gotten much, more uniform set of fruits, maybe less, but, maybe better quality in some cases. Even though, as I said, I would have gotten really nice fruits if not for the downy mildew. So vigilance is very a key component in growing your watermelon plants. So those are key, I would believe, to getting a wonderful plant. Of course, I would also recommend that you, if the time is humid, that you constantly spray. I would say every 7 to 10 days that you use a fungicide to spray, especially when you have a thick, bushy watermelon plant like the one I have. I am not going to make that mistake again. I had no pesticide issues, no pest issues, because I did use the pesticide I would say every 2 weeks or so. I didn't have any pest problems, but I did not see the fungus, the downy mildew coming. So I suffered. All right. After about a week, it went into a rapid decline, you know, and the result was very, very devastating. I'll just give you a quick view. Totally devastating. Look at that. Many were harvested not by choice and couldn't have been eaten. They weren't edible. But that's for another video. So as you can see here, this was one of the first ones that got tried. It was better off than many others. As you can see, the stem was totally dried up. Totally dried up. It was not sweet, but it had a faint, a very faint sweet. Very, very, but it was flavorful. It had flavor, so I must give it that. It had flavor. Yeah, it definitely had flavor. This is another one. This one was not bad either. It was similar to that one. And then we had this one that we had a lot of hopes for. And this one definitely didn't disappoint. This was what I expected from all of them. This one was really, really sweet. It was flavorful. The texture was perfect. For me, the texture was perfect. So this is what I aspire to get from a melon, after putting in all of that. Yes, so yeah, this was the goal to look toward, when I started planting melons. This was another piece. Of course, I did my sharing as usual, shared it up for quite a few, persons. But I am definitely proud to say that I am sure I can do better.